Hey, good Thursday, everybody. Meteorologist Dan Bickford here in the Storm Team 7 Forecast Center. Of course, the big talk is the threat for wintry weather going into the weekend. We've got the latest data, and it's backing off a little bit on our totals for snow and ice. It still means we're going to see a decent amount of snow across western North Carolina. It still means we have to keep close tabs on especially the northern upstate for the potential for snow and ice, and it's still going to be an issue in a lot of places, but it may not be the spectacularly large snow that it looked like we may have seen. We may still see some pretty stout snowfall totals, though, particularly in western North Carolina. Let's set the stage. Today, we started off with sun. We've had some clouds move overhead. Our temperatures have stayed in the 40s. The system we're watching, though, is this area of low pressure that is way, way out here off the California coast. We've got to wait for that thing to get all the way across the country and work up this way to send moisture up over cold air that is going to be spilling in from the north and the east. And all of that is going to combine to give us our wintry weather threat. And that really isn't happening here until Saturday, possibly in the afternoon in the mountains, but certainly Saturday night into Sunday, a little bit closer to home. And it's going to start off as rain in many locations, but eventually turn over to snow, and then possibly a mix of some freezing rain and sleet. Again, the big issue we're having here is because this storm is still way out here. It's got a long way to go. And it could take some turns, needless to say, in that time. And it's just a small shift in forecast direction, even just 15, 30 miles or so, is going to have a major impact on what we see across parts of the area. Because that could take some of you that are in a snow area and maybe remove you from a snow area. If it goes the other way, it could take areas that are currently not outlook for snow or ice and put you in more of a wintry weather outlook. So here's the latest on what we're expecting. This hasn't been issued yet, but the Winter Storm Watch is about to be issued for western North Carolina. That's actually going to start Saturday afternoon and run through Monday morning. Nothing is being issued yet for the upstate or northeastern Georgia. That is going to change, however, as we go forward in time. We haven't gotten that information from the National Weather Service has said they're going to issue that watch. They haven't done it yet. So we're waiting on that, but expect that to be showing up on your apps and on TV screens around the region as we go through the next hour or so. That watch is going to be issued again for western North Carolina, not yet for the upstate and south and northeastern Georgia. Still giving it a little bit more time because it's a little more uncertain on the accumulations across areas outside of the mountains. Anyway, we start off with Friday morning. We're still cold. We've got a frontal boundary on our doorstep, which is going to sag on through. Do look for some sunshine and return tomorrow. Do look for lower 50s. Do look for some 40s in the mountains. Look for a dry day. If you've got Friday evening plans, no worries. Clouds are going to start to thicken up, though, going into Saturday morning. And most of us are dry Saturday morning. We start to see a little moisture trying to get into northeastern Georgia, the western tip of North Carolina. Here's the thinking on that. Right now, this is moving in a very dry air. So I think our forecast model is being a little bit aggressive in showing precipitation reaching the ground, at least that early. The trend through the day, though, is we are going to see that moisture spread from west to east. And it is going to be in the form of rain outside the mountains. Initially, some rain in the mountains or a rain-snow mix before changing to snow as the temperatures do begin to drop. Let's take a closer look, though. We'll pick this up Saturday morning. This is the model that has been producing the best results so far in terms of at least consistency with what we're going to see. This also, I think, is a little bit quick with showing the moisture reaching the ground. Can't rule out a couple stray raindrops Saturday morning or maybe a few stray snowflakes in the mountains. It's not going to be a big deal Saturday morning, and I think much of the day Saturday is probably going to be in reasonably good shape. However, as we get towards Saturday evening, we do see larger areas of snow breaking out in the mountains. We see in the pink, that's going to be a mix of rain and snow. The upstate is mainly going to be rain, at least till we get to sunset. And then we're going to see a mix, perhaps around and north of the 85 corridor with some snow. At this point, the heavy precipitation hasn't started yet, so it's probably not going to be all that big a deal. But do be on the lookout, because by the time we get to Saturday evening, we may see a few flakes flying across the area. We certainly will in the mountains. The heaviest precipitation is then going to be working through the area as we go through late Saturday night and in through the first half of the day on Sunday. This also happens to correspond with when our temperatures are going to start to get the coldest. So as we go through Saturday night and into Sunday morning, pretty much all of western North Carolina's mountains, with the exception of the western tip, will be in snow. Snow will also be continuing across the mountains of South Carolina into the northeastern upstate and throughout the foothills of North Carolina. There's going to be a zone to the south of that where we're going to see a mix of rain and snow and perhaps freezing rain and sleet. And then farther to the south, this is going to be all rain and heavy rain at that. That's one thing that's been overlooked a little bit. Some of the lakelands where we may stay mostly rain with this particular system, we could see in excess of 2 inches of rain out of this. So this is not going to be kind of a light system working through. The problem is you get that kind of moisture into the cold air and you start getting some accumulations of snow and or ice. We mentioned this yesterday. I'm going to say it again now. This area in here where we are going to have that transition zone is by all means not set in stone. It could be a little bit farther to the north. It could be a little bit farther to the south. That's going to obviously have a huge impact because it moves farther south. You folks from Toccoa to Anderson are going to be more in line for some icing at the very least, maybe a little bit of snow. If it moves farther north, we'll have to cut snow accumulation prospects for areas in the upstate where we are expecting the snow accumulation. And to this point, I'll show you possible totals here in a moment. We've cut back a little bit on the accumulation numbers. Here's why. We're still getting the cold air, we're still getting the wintry weather, but the models, all the forecast models are dialing back a bit on the amount of moisture coming in, which means if you get less moisture coming in, that's less to translate into what falls. And there's also a thinking that we're going to see a little bit more sleet mix in with some of the snow, particularly in the upstate where we see the snow. That in turn would also drive down snowfall accumulations. As such, some of the numbers I'm going to show you here in a little bit aren't going to be as large as some of the numbers that you may see elsewhere or have seen earlier today, even from us, simply because this is a changing situation. And I'll tell you what, maps we show tomorrow morning and tomorrow afternoon may look even different because we're still tracking this day by day, mile by mile as the system works our way. As we go through Sunday during the day, we'll start to see the freezing line lift to the north. At the same time, the heaviest precipitation is going to move off to the east. So by Sunday evening, we still have a lot of moisture around, not heavy precipitation, but we're still going to see light snow in the mountains, perhaps some moderately heavy snow still continuing in the northern mountains. There's going to be a mix from the foothills to the northern upstate, and it's mainly going to be rain farther to the south. Again, this is going into Sunday evening as temperatures climb, but only very slightly. We're still talking low to mid 30s for temperatures across the upstate and closer to lower 30s and maybe still a few upper 20s in the mountains. They're not going to climb much during the day on Sunday. So we're going to have to watch that carefully. Sometimes the models are a little too quick to warm us up in the wake of these systems. I'm hoping that's not the case with this. So that's something we will have to watch. In any case, I think the precipitation will be light. The problem is if you've got a light mix falling on areas that have already seen wintry precipitation, no one's cleaning that up anytime soon. We're also going to have to watch a secondary push of low pressure on the heels of this. So let's take you through Sunday night and a Monday morning. Still the potential for some light rain in the upstate, pushing in the foothills, some snow in the mountains. I think at this particular point, we're done with the sleet and freezing rain because the warm air aloft that brings in the heavier precipitation, it's going to be gone. We'll be on the backside of the main system, plenty of cold air up above our heads aloft, which means this is going to be turning into just a rain or snow thing. And as we go through the day on Monday, this moisture is going to continue to sag across the area and then move out as we go into Monday evening. And I think there's still going to be the potential Monday for some spotty rain and snow showers. And we may see some minor further accumulations, particularly in western North Carolina. Don't be shocked to see some snow showers at some point Monday during the upstate before all of this moves out. Some of you will see rain, some of you will see snow. Not looking for a whole lot of accumulation out of that if we do see it. Temperatures are going to struggle on Monday too. We may still stay in the 30s during the day, albeit above freezing, so that should help with any roadways that do end up with some snow or ice on them. And then by Tuesday morning, clearing out, we get back some sunshine on a Tuesday, and that will be noticeably welcome. Here is the latest on the possible amounts, and this has changed quite a bit for some in comparison to some maps posted a little earlier today, and I will repeat, this will change again. The reason it has changed now and some of the snow totals have backed off, the reason twofold. One, Less moisture moving into the cold air cuts down on the precipitation totals, cuts down on the snow totals. The second item is because, particularly in the northern upstate, we're expecting a little bit extra sleet to perhaps mix in with the snow, and that in turn knocks down the snow totals a bit more. This will change again. This is a very fluid situation, and if we see the models trending with a little bit more moisture, we may see these numbers go up. At the same time, that zone that we're watching through the 85 corridor, where northern parts of Greenville and Spartanburg County are in the potential for heavier snow, and southern parts of the counties aren't expected to see much of anything, we may still see that zone shift a little bit north or south. So your results, especially in the 85 corridor, may change a couple times between now and when we actually start to see the white of the eyes of the storm as we go into Saturday morning. For now, we're looking at an area across some of the northern mountains out into the foothills in the Piedmont of North Carolina where widespread amounts of 8 inches to perhaps a foot plus are going to be possible. I've got 8 to 10 inches there. We may see some banding and we can't pin out where that's going to occur right now, where there could be higher amounts. Right now, I've got a large portion of the mountains down a bit on the snow accumulation, down to about 4 to 8 inches. And again, this is because we're not expecting as much moisture to get in the mountains as we were expecting earlier. That said, there are still going to be some areas where we're going to have that moist flow of air pushing up the mountain slopes, and some of those southeastern slopes really running right up the Blue Ridge from parts of Transylvania, Henderson, Polk, Rutherford County, up into McDowell County on up. We could see a little zone in here that is going to spike higher and perhaps noticeably higher, where we're going to see a foot or more of snow. And again, that's something that we're just going to have to watch as it develops. A lot of the populated areas, though, are probably going to stay a little lower with snow and maybe a little bit of sleet mixing in. You get into the western mountains, you get into the bluer area, and we're talking 2 to 4 inches, and you get into the far western mountains. Way out western Graham County, we may not pick up much of anything, but parts of Graham, Swain, Macon counties, maybe an inch or 2 or so. So the heaviest activity is really going to be the foothills. We had some forecasts for Polk, Rutherford County, and again, the mountains that were 10 to 12 or higher a little earlier. We have backed down on those. It's still going to be a lot of snow, and you're really going to have to pay close attention in case we see a little bit of moisture sneaking back up and this gets boosted a little bit. So certainly not something to sleep on as we go through time. Still going to be a notable storm, if not necessarily the epic storm that it looked like it was going to be. This could change. Now for the upstate, it's going to be we're still forecasting a very harsh gradient. We've come down a little bit on the totals across the northern upstate, pretty much through central sections, though it stays the same. And in the south, we're still looking at less than an inch, a dusting to an inch of snow possible from Toccoa through Hartwell, Elberton, Anderson, Greenwood, Abbeville, Lawrence, Clinton, Newberry. Not expecting a whole lot in terms of snow. A 1 to 2 inch band running from Union across, say, to Enery, to really the south sides of Greenville on a Clemson. 2 to 4 inches running from north sides of Union County up through the Spartanburg area, through Greer, north sides of Greenville, onto the northern, well, some of northern Pickens County. You get into the mountains of Oconee, Pickens counties, Greenville County, far northern Spartanburg County, northern Cherokee County, I should say, including the Gaffney area. Anywhere closer to the North Carolina border, we're expecting the possibility that we are going to see more. And we've got you in a 4 to 8 inch range right now. So again, even in some particular counties in the northern upstate, we could see a huge range in totals from north to south. And as this system shifts, if we get a little bit more moisture and a little bit more in the way of colder air, these higher numbers are going to sink to the south. We have already seen these numbers shrink a little bit. It's possible that they could shrink, or some of this could track a little bit farther north. So do be aware, this is a fluid situation. Stay up with the latest forecast. This is just the latest based on the current data we have. Somewhere along this transition zone, where we go from snow accumulation to an inch or 2 or less than an inch, we're likely going to see some freezing rain. We've backed down a little bit on this as well, simply because the forecast models are showing more rain versus sleet as opposed to a whole lot of freezing rain. Just the same, a light glazing of ice could occur from Union to Lawrence to north sides of Greenwood to maybe Elberton, Hartwell, up to Toccoa, we could see a brief period of freezing rain. And in the transition zone, some of this could continue across much of northeastern Georgia and into the western and to some extent the central mountains of North Carolina may also see a brief period of freezing rain. Right now we're looking for a light glaze of ice, generally 1/10 of an inch of ice or less, not necessarily enough to cause problems with trees or power lines, although in isolated cases it might. This would be more of a roadway issue. Again, this has changed simply because the amount of moisture has changed. It has come down, so the likelihood of seeing the heavier ice accumulations has come down a little bit. This could go up a little. Again, very fluid situation. We're just doing the best we can with the data we have, and until this system actually until this low pressure center actually gets over land and we can start seeing and releasing weather balloons into the system and start seeing more of what's going on up higher up in the sky within that system, the models are going to have less than stellar data to work with, so we could still see the models do some shifting on this as we go through time. I think the biggest takeaway from this is the chance for at least a light glaze of ice has pushed much farther south and west than initially anticipated, to where a good chunk of northeastern Georgia is going to have at least a potential for a little bit of freezing rain during this system. So here are the takeaways on our weekend storm. This is going to start as rain on Saturday. It's probably going to then start to mix with or change with snow in the mountains as soon as midday, depending on how fast the precipitation moves in. The sooner it comes in, the sooner we get that changeover. For most of the upstate and northeastern Georgia outside of the mountains, the main winter weather threat is going to be Saturday night and Sunday. All of us are going to have a chance for a continuation of some more winter weather Sunday night and a Monday in the form of a rain-snow mix. Most of it, however, will be on the light side. We may get a couple moderate bursts, however, particularly in the mountains. The heaviest snow is going to be in North Carolina, mountains and foothills, and into the far northern upstate, especially near the North Carolina border. There's going to be a transition zone in the 85 corridor where we're going to see those totals drop rapidly. And then farther south, we'll see rain. You may see some snow, some sleet, some freezing rain. And it's still some in question as to how much of each you're going to get. But right now it looks like the threat for accumulations of all are still going to be relatively low. But again, it doesn't take much of snow or ice on the ground to certainly cause some travel problems. So here are the impacts you need to prepare for. Snow and ice covered roads in areas of North Carolina and especially the northern upstate where we have the potential for higher snow amounts. Power outages are going to be possible, especially where we have higher accumulations of snow or ice. It's going to be a heavy, wet snow, and there are going to be areas in North Carolina that may see some of that weigh down on some of the power lines and some of the tree limbs and try to bring them down. With the ice accumulation forecast having been lowered a little bit across the upstate, I think this is a little less of a threat right now, but don't let your guard down, because if we see that moisture increase and we start to see some of these accumulation totals come up, the chance for at least isolated power outages in the upstate where we see the heaviest snow or the heaviest ice may come up just a little bit. And let's not forget, there's so much moisture with this, even in areas where we don't see much in the way of wintry weather, it's going to be a storm you're going to notice, because some of those far southern areas in the lakelands where we don't get a whole lot of wintry weather, but you may get a little bit of a glaze of ice, outside of that, you're going to have heavy rain, upwards of 2 inches. So this is going to be a soaker for you. So a lot going on with the system, a lot of moving parts, and we are expecting probably some more changes in what is being forecast as far as snow and ice. So you want to stay up with the forecast. Malachi Rogers will be on air in about 30 minutes with the latest. And of course, Chief Meteorologist Christy Henderson will have more tomorrow morning on Carolina Morning, and we will be updating the maps. Maps you see later tonight may be a little different than what we show now as we continue to react to what nature is going to try to bring us with this storm. So stay tuned with the weather. You're in for a pretty quiet day tomorrow, but if you've got plans to do any travel or had plans to do any travel, particularly late Saturday through Sunday and even in some areas into Monday, you want to make sure you have alternate plans, especially if you're headed into western North Carolina where the weather will probably be at the worst. Take care, everybody.